Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Everybody, thank you. Wonderful. Thank you all very, very, very much. Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Lunchtime with Stevie D Show, with your host with the most, myself, Mr. Stevie D. You know, kids, I was sitting down to dinner with my illegitimate stepson Felix the other night, reminiscing about the good old days when I used to collect Social Security and unemployment while running an illegal gambling racket out of the ladies' auxiliary office out of the Lutheran church next door, when I suddenly started to realize that the world we live in has changed dramatically. I mean, immorality and indecency are at an all-time high, and I can't even get a seat at a poker game. That's when I realized that I wanted to do something for this great nation. So, folks, I'm here tonight to formally announce my candidacy for the office of Vice President of the United States of America. And I know what you're thinking. We want Stevie D for president. But have you ever heard of the Vice President being shot? So I figured if there were people out there in the world who wanted to kill me, they'd have to wait till I become president. My opponent, Mr. Bob Doormat, has challenged me to a debate. I naturally accepted on the conditions that, first of all, he would not bring up me writing a bad check to that prostitute in Florida incident, and also only imported olives be served in the martinis. Mr. Doormat accepted with a little persuasion from the Godfather and a 10-spot. Tonight's moderator is Mr. Michael Renfro of the Professional Moderators Association of America. And at this time, I'd like to turn it all over to him so we can get the ball rolling. Mikey, baby, take it away.
Thank you, Stevie D.
Anytime, pal.
As a member of the Professional Moderators Association of America, I swear to the highest ethical standards and objectivity. I'm here tonight to see that issues important to the American public are addressed, as well as get in on that poker game backstage. But more importantly, I came for the clam bake. Tonight's debate will begin with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. It will then be followed by a 1 minute. They will then have 1 minute to answer the prepared questions from our gathered panel of esteemed journalists. Stevie D, since you threatened me earlier with a wedgie and promised to burn my house down unless you get preferential treatment, why don't you go first?
Sure, Mikey, babe. My fellow Americans. Wait a minute. I knew something was wrong here. Here we go. My fellow Americans, peoples of great dishonor, integrity, and insurrection. You've all known me in the past as the lovable, laughable, one-of-a-kind guy, Stevie D. However, today, I'm here to ask for your support to make a greater difference in our society. I need your help if we want to rid this great nation of morality, lawfulness, one of those two, and bars with no peanuts. I guarantee each citizen of America life, liberty, and a decent spot at the races. Let's not let the death of countless Americans be in vain. Join me today or tomorrow night in my hotel room so that we can make this great land a better place for me, Stevie D. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. D.
Anytime.
Mr. Doormat, it is your turn to address the people of this great nation.
My fellow Americans, I stand before you tonight to sound the alarm against the creeping tyranny of subversive revolutionary elements in our society which have conspired to raise taxes in order to further their agenda of sheep cloning and nuclear proliferation. If they are allowed to promote this agenda and challenge the entire fabric of American family values, and Monday Night Football is at risk. We must utilize psychology, technology, and chiropractic criminology to root them out and bring their un-American deeds to light. If I am elected, I will forge a rainbow coalition of kickboxers, lap dancers, and Marine Corps fighter pilots to take back this great country from Stevie D and all those who support him and his agenda. Remember, a vote for Doormat is a vote for American family values and the Witness Protection Program.
Thank you, gentlemen. And now I'd like to introduce our panel of esteemed journalists. At the far end is Quan Kwok of the Weekly World News, whose recent series of articles on mutants who've run for governor still currently running. Next to him is Gertrude Rabinowitz. Gertrude Rabinowitz of Stars and Stripes magazine. She is a hermaphrodite and will heretofore be referred to as the hermaphrodite Rabinowitz. And finally, Mr. Danny Scumioli, foreign correspondent for Hustler magazine. We'll open up the questioning with Ms. and or Mr. Rabinowitz. Ms. and or Mr. Rabinowitz? Please ask the first question.
Mr. Stevie D, you have absolutely no political experience. What makes you think that you could successfully function as the Vice President of the United States?
Good question. Well, Gertie babe, I do come from a long line of drinkers, smokers, gamblers, and womanizers. I'm a modern Democrat or Republican, or one of the two, I don't remember. A great ballroom dancer, and I do own an extensive collection of Leonard Nimoy albums, which, by the way, me and little Stevie D like to dance to a lot. But most importantly, I understand the real issues concerning voters today: the price of booze, drugs, and women. The people of this great land, they want a leader who can deliver on promises. I, on the other hand, promise nothing. As a successful businessman, I know that hard work, integrity, and honesty stand for absolutely nothing. I stand for corruption, blackmail, and extortion. Ain't that right, babe? Which, of course, guarantee our beautiful way of life. And remember, kids, a vote for Stevie D is a vote in the right direction. So, vote for Stevie D or OD. Love you. Thanks, babe.
Thank you, Mr. D. Mr. Kwok, would you please ask the next question? Mr. Kwok.
Yeah. Door dude, if you were, say, abducted by aliens and taken aboard a spaceship piloted by Elvis, what would you do, dude?
Well, between colon probes, the first thing I try to do is forge an alliance with them while simultaneously promoting American culture and educating them about the involvement of Stevie D in the Kennedy assassination, the death of Marilyn Monroe, and the disappearance of Amelia Earhart. If there's one thing I've learned in all my years in Congress, it's that the American people respond positively to negativity. That's why I've hired Jerry Springer as my campaign manager.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Is it true what he said about Monday Night Football?
It's in print. It's got to be true. Well, that concludes the first round of tonight's debate. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for coming out, and we will resume the debate after a short break. But first, I'd like to rub chocolate sauce on myself.
I'm Susan Stoophausen of the Evening News.
And I'm Jim Davidson of the Morning News.
Jim, how do you feel the candidates are doing so far?
Well, Stevie D is an extremely popular celebrity. He has a strong community-oriented position, and as long as Bob Doormat doesn't bring up the prostitute incident, I believe his position will be unchallenged.
That's interesting, Jim. What details can you tell us about the incident in Florida?
Well, allegedly, Stevie D, the Godfather, and their bodyguard were utilizing the services of several prostitutes, one of which was a midget, in their Holiday Inn hotel room in Panama Beach, Florida. Evidently, Mr. D paid for the services with a check and later bounced. The prostitutes have gone to force Stevie to pay for the services as well as damages.
It's extremely fascinating, Jim. Now, how do you feel that'll affect his overall showing in the polls?
Well, Mr. D is extremely popular among NRA members, communists, and figments of his own imagination. He still has a shot.
Now, how about Bob Doormat?
Well, Mr. Doormat was the leader of the group responsible for Black Wednesday in 1978. He's a moderate unable to appeal to the mainstream. His campaign contributors have included known international terrorist organizations such as UNICEF and the Symbionese Liberation Army. He's extremely popular in rural portions of the country, especially states with large militia memberships.
I understand that you're out on the campaign trail this week, Jim, and you shot some footage. Why don't we take a look at what you saw?
Good idea, Susan.
I'd like to welcome you to the neighborhood where I grew up. Chinese restaurants, strip joints, crap games going on the side. This is what made me what I am today, the vice presidential candidate for the United States of America. 10 years ago, this was a dump. We had people on the streets. We had people dying. We had people... Hi, how are you doing? Good to see you again. It was terrible. But when I grew up here, businesses were flourishing. Hell, my sister worked in this strip joint. When I get elected, you're going to see liquor stores all on this side, strip joints all on this side. You're going to see gambling at the end of the street. You're going to see prostitution at the end of that street. Because, you know, I can't have prostitution and strip joints at the same place. It just is too tacky, you know? 10 on that.
You guys can go
What do you mean you can't give me 10? Come on, it's game day. We got 2 hours till the game. Why can't you just... Hey, it's me, Stevie, baby. Oh, sure. I'm sorry, Ma. Well, I'll post bail next week. Yeah, by Wednesday, I promise.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Great Debate. In this round, both candidates will have 1 minute to answer questions, and his opponent will have 1 minute for rebuttal. Now, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind our audience to please hold your applause and refrain from tossing your underwear at the candidates until the end of the debate, unless, of course, Tom Jones is running, which he's not, so please leave your underwear on. That means you, pal, right there. Okay, we'll open up the questioning this time with Mr. Scumioli, foreign correspondent of Hustler magazine. Mr. Scumioli.
So I was wondering it was functional or something.
Do you want the male or the female?
I got 2 hands, you know.
Yes,
Oh, excuse me. Oh, yes, Mr. Stevie D. Could you please describe to us how you would go about seducing the First Lady if elected Vice President? Mr. D, did you hear the question?
Mr. Scumioli, I know how to get his attention. Fight squad!
What?
Thank you for joining us,
Oh.
Mr. D. Mr. Scumioli, would you please repeat the question?
Sure. Mr. D,
Yeah.
like I was saying, could you please describe to us your genitalia and how you would go about using it up, against, around, in, seducing the First Lady if elected Vice President?
Oh, of course. Thanks, Scummy baby, of course.
You got it.
Well, let me, he's kind of get out of the way here. Well, first of all, I'd accidentally enter her bedroom, say about 3 a.m., when the president was out of the country, of course. I'd whisper sweet nothings in her ear and wake her up with a freshly made chocolate martini, handing it to her, of course. I would then put on my favorite episode of Lawrence Welk and dance the samba for her. By this time, the Godfather would come in and start snapping Polaroids of me and the First Lady. After several drinks, the Godfather and several Secret Service members and myself would call the president and talk to him while we were having sex with his wife. Naturally, he'd begin masturbating while the Godfather was yelling obscenities in the background. And in the morning, the whole gang would go out for breakfast at Denny's. Peace.
I don't think he likes your...
Mr. Doormat, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
I am deeply offended that my opponent has dared to mention the sacred institution of marriage, the Secret Service, and chocolate martinis all in the same breath. Of course, I believe in all three. They're as American as Mom, the flag, and apple pie. Furthermore, I don't believe that Lawrence Welk should be made an issue in this election. What I am proposing is a middle-class tax cut for all families with combined incomes of less than $1. That and my new get tough stance on crime. Use an accordion, go to jail. If I am elected vice president, that will be the law.
Thank you, Mr. Doormat. And now the hermaphrodite Rabinowitz will present the next question. Ma'am, sir.
Mr. Doormat, when you spoke at the Rotary Club meeting last week, what did you mean when you said, and I quote, "I will crush your armies, then eat their flesh to gain their power energy, for I am Crow Warrior, Prince of Middle-earth"? Was that an attack on the deregulation of the telecommunications industry, or are you just mad with power?
Well, I know what you're getting at, Jim, but I'm not mad with power. I'm just plain mad. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. As the great philosopher and spiritual leader Dick Butkus once said, the best offense is a good defense. Or was it the best defense is a good offense? I always get those two mixed up. But let there be no doubt, Jim, as I stand before the American people tonight, I make this solemn pledge. If I am elected to the office of Vice President, I promise to always be more offensive than my opponent. That's what the American people want, Jim, and that's what they deserve.
That's touching, Doormat.
Brilliant. Mr. D, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
Thanks, Mikey, babe. Well, as a man of science, I know the importance of being regular. A high-fiber diet consisting of Mamma Mia's all-you-can-eat Italian buffet from Mario's Real Italian Restaurant keeps the old gizzard in check, if you know what I mean. Well, they got it all there. They got spaghetti, they got clams, they got garlic bread, chow mein, burritos. They got everything. Come in this week for the salmon special and tell them Stevie D sent you, and you'll get validated parking free at the Holiday Inn across the street. And remember, all major credit cards are accepted. So bring the family, the kids, the wife, the in-laws, and most importantly, a big appetite to Mario's Real Italian Restaurant. And by the way, it's off the Jersey Turnpike, off Old Colony Freeway, open daily for lunch and dinner, and all major credit cards are accepted. We'll feed you like your mama used to. Love ya.
Thank you, Mr. D. Mario's Real Italian Restaurant, they also do catering for weddings and bar mitzvahs?
Yeah, we'll plug them again.
That's right. So they do cater weddings and bar mitzvahs?
Oh yeah, they do, especially with the wise guys.
Excellent, excellent. I'll have to eat there sometime.
Anytime.
The next question will be from Mr. Kwok. Mr. Kwok?
Yeah. Door Dude, in a recent campaign ad, you stated that if elected, you promise good things for everybody all the time. Cool. Excellent. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, the answer to that is as simple as ABC.
I'm sorry, Mr. Doormat, Stevie D specifically requested that there be no math.
Well, how am I supposed to answer the question if I can't do math?
Thank you, Mr. Doormat. Thank you for that kernel of wisdom. Let's hope Stevie D will be more illuminating with his answers. Mr. Scamioli, it is your turn to ask the next question.
You know, I've always fancied myself homosexual. Oh,
Mr. Scamioli.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, Mr. D, this is a multiple-part question, so I don't want to lose you along the way. Your opponent has accused you of being openly corrupt instead of covertly corrupt like he is. Now, how do you respond to that, as well as when I say these words, crooked, organ, kumquat, and wild nympho pygmies frolicking nakedly on the beach?
Of course I will. I will neither agree nor disagree with all or nothing or either or neither. But as for my opponent, he's a fine one to talk. I have documented evidence right here, as a matter of fact, that he is not only the best customer, but is also part owner of a Daly City smut bar called the Horny Hun, of which he has never invited me to.
Mr. Doormat.
That's not true. That is not true. I thought it was a club where I could stop by, have an espresso, and read National Geographic. I mean, it was only after I announced my candidacy that I found out about its reputation.
Excuse me, I'm having trouble swallowing something I just heard. The next question is for you, Mr. Doormat, and please remember that many of our viewers do eat more than 3 donuts a day. The next question will be presented by the hermaphrodite Rabinowitz.
Why have you been dodging questions about your continuing affair with Betty White?
Now just wait a minute, you unkempt hippie. Betty White is a good friend of mine. Besides, she's the only Golden Girl that knows how to arm wrestle.
Stevie D, rebuttal.
Oh, I agree. Betty White does know how to arm wrestle. Very well, as a matter of fact.
Wow, and I always thought B. Arthur was the best arm wrestler. Well, there you have it, folks. Another important issue ripped from today's headlines and addressed with a clarity rarely seen on television. The next question will be from Mr. Kwok.
Yeah. D-Dude, exactly what was the statement you were trying to make when you recently ran across Union Square with tinfoil on your head? Cool. And, quote, yelling on top of your head, quote, FBI, the FBI and Disney are trying to read my mind again, unquote.
What about that, Mr. D?
Well, certainly now that you mention that. Well, you see, I was under my doctor's care of special medication, but my doctor was arrested subsequently, and I had what we call in politics a little regressive episode. But now that my physician is practicing again in Mexico, everything's fine. Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
So there you have it, folks. Another testimonial for the advantages of NAFTA. The next question will be from Mr. Scamioli. Mr. Scamioli.
Right. Well, this is one for Mr. Doormat. Mr. Doormat, you were quoted as saying you are for a fast track, but against, hard on, hard start, head on, and head start. Now, all these programs have 2 words in their names. You only support one of them. Well, sir, I don't understand why you can't support, let's say, hard on.
Well, just because each program has a 2-word title doesn't mean that they are the same thing. In fact, let me clarify this with another long-winded illustration.
Hey, just can it, Doorknob. Let me say something. You see, folks, unlike my opponent, I believe in talking to my constituents as if they are all really stupid. Whether it's fast track, head start, or whatever, you know, these are just really big words that confuse you, the public, and me both. Now, the public wants to hear words regular people can understand. The problem with Doorstop over here is that he thinks he's smarter than the rest of the American people, whereas I know that I'm just as ignorant as they are. Oh, excuse me, my people are telling me to cry into the camera right now.
Thank you, Stevie D, for that transparently shallow, yet nevertheless invariably effective appeal to the 27% of the electorate who will actually vote. The next question will be from the hermaphrodite Rabinowitz. Ma'am, sir.
Mr. Stevie D, you have not tried to hide the fact that you and your campaign have been actively registering dead people to vote. The latest indications show that there are now twice as many registered people in your district as there are actually living people. This includes children and pets. How would you attempt to defend such a blatant violation of the law?
Sweetheart, Gertie baby, you see, the dead have been discriminated against for years, and I'm telling you because you people don't realize this. You know, nobody likes a maggot-covered corpse sitting next to you on the bus. But do they not love and laugh and dream as we all do? I mean, who will be their advocate in the public arena? I was once dead, or my career was. So I know exactly how they feel. And whether you're a skeleton or a freshly covered corpse with maggots whose rigor mortis has not quite set in, just remember, I care.
Mr. Doormat, rebuttal.
That is the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. I am a traditional politician who will accept any cash contribution as long as it is in small, unmarked denominations. Besides, everyone knows the dead don't vote for people. They can only vote in football stadium deals, not people.
Quite interesting. Thank you all once again. That concludes this round of tonight's debate, and we will be back after a short break.
Ladies and gentlemen, the initial results are in. Stevie D is ahead in all regions of the country except Orange County, where he is perceived as too conservative.
Yes, Jim, Stevie D is extremely popular among both parties, dinner and house. Last year, he doubled the Firemen's Pension Fund in Las Vegas and was quickly elected the president of the Teamster Union Local 147. However, Mr. Doormat is still in the running and must be considered by the Stevie D campaign as a serious threat.
But it also seems that Mr. Doormat has made a comeback in the Northwest region. Do you think this is Stevie D's lead is in any serious danger?
Stevie D needs to begin running down the clock. He's shown himself a man of principles and a worthy leader. It is my understanding that the Stevie D campaign is currently waging a strong telemarketing campaign to pull viewers away from their television, ensuring his lead. Anyway, I think it's now time to take a look at life out on the campaign trail for his opponent, Mr. Doormat.
Not too long ago, this ice skating rink you see here behind me was nothing more than a nuclear wasteland and toxic chemical dump. It reeked by day and gloated by night. No one would come here, but thanks to my work in the house, it is now a playground for small children and their pets. Safe as long as the ice doesn't melt. Bob Doormat cares about children and small pets. Bob Doormat isn't afraid to fight for our children's welfare. Bob Doormat knows how to reconcile the needs of children's recreation, fiscal responsibility, and the storage of plutonium byproducts.
I started out in politics when I was just a small boy running errands for my district supervisor's campaign in '62. In high school, I was voted class vice president all 4 years. When I got to college, I was assistant editor of the school paper and vice chairman of the debate team. After college, I joined the Army, where I quickly rose to the rank of corporal. After my discharge, I was elected to Congress and served as vice chairman on over a dozen committees. At the same time, I started my own business, eventually rising even there to the position of Vice President. My whole life has been a constant preparation for the job of Vice President of the United States. I don't think there was ever a candidate in the history of this great nation who is better prepared for this job than I am.
Welcome back to the conclusion of tonight's debate. In this round, each candidate will make a 1-minute closing statement. Mr. D, since you threatened me with a wedgie earlier, and I really don't want one, why don't you go first?
Sure, Mikey, babe. Ladies and gentlemen, as Stevie D, the celebrity, businessman, philanthropist, family man, and ex-con, I know what it's like to have to pay off your parole officer, rough up the maitre d' at a fancy schmancy restaurant, or wait in line at the races. I don't want our children to go through the same pain. I dream of a country where anyone can go to a massage parlor, or a dame can get it on with her old man in any old alleyway, or a little kid can buy all the booze he can get his grubby little hands on. A vote for Stevie D is a vote for the principles that we hold dear to our heart. I also at this time want to ask for a contribution for the Elect Stevie D campaign fund. The bigger the better. Large contributions will ensure preferential treatment. Hell, I'll even throw a Social Security check or two for the first 1,000 callers. Vote Stevie D in '97 for a better, brighter tomorrow. Love ya.
Thank you, Stevie D. Mr. Doormat, your closing statement.
My fellow Americans, it has been a great privilege to address you here tonight. I am sure that after you walk away from your TV sets, you will come to a definite conclusion. But before you do, think of the American bald eagle, the stars and stripes, the Star-Spangled Banner, hamburgers, hot dogs, and Joey Buttafuoco. Ask yourself which candidate best personifies the American principles of peace, love, and world domination. Who will stand up in the UN General Assembly and call for airstrikes against Canada? Ask yourself what made this nation great and gave us personal liberty, teen pregnancy, soaring budget deficits, crack houses, and Stevie D. I'll tell you who. Saddam Hussein. Saddam. And I'll tell you something. If you elect me, a vote against Stevie D is a vote for me, is a vote against Saddam.
Ladies and gentlemen, good night. Thank you for coming. I want to wish everybody a happy Ramadan. I want to thank Michael Renfro for keeping the toilet seat warm. I want to thank Uncle Fidel for the cigars. I want to thank members of the press for giving me a great deal on that classified ad. We'll see you next time on the Lunchtime with Stevie D Show, where I'll be playing with my llama. Good night and see you. Goodbye, everybody. What are you talking about, Saddam Hussein? I paid Saddam Hussein off, just like Uncle Fidel. I'm the real man in power. Nobody could do it without me. It was me and me alone. Stevie D, vote. Love you, babe. And remember, I take payoffs.
Right.
Anything you want. Small denominations, large bills, the bigger the better. You know what I mean? And don't forget about Mario's Real Italian Restaurant. Oh, yeah, her too. Oh, my God. I saw her at Mario's, actually.